Hello and welcome to Money Control Innovation Next, presented by Google Cloud. I'm your host Gautam Srinivasan, and our focus for today is the retail sector and understanding how it can be transformed with data. Well, we truly are living in interesting times, considering retailers have to address the rapid changes in consumer behavior and seek to deliver effective and efficient experiences at every stage of the customer journey. Now, while the top areas of innovation in retail, according to a study sponsored by Google Cloud, are mobile commerce and customer innovation, that same study finds the innovation focus varying by market maturity in the APAC region, with mature digital retailers focusing on digitally connected experiences, while relatively less mature ones are prioritizing demand planning, allocations, and assortments. So, where does India fit in? Well, the study, having taken India's retail digital pulse, reveals the biggest improvement having taken place in terms of maturity since the last wave. Now, the headline is that great strides have been taken in strategy, but the fine print reveals the least progress having been made in technology. So, how can retailers in India move on from being digital explorers to becoming digitally resilient and overcome the challenges of digital implementation? That's what we're here to find out with an elite panel of leaders from the retail space who have navigated this digital voyage with great success. Let me quickly introduce our lineup of speakers, starting with Jaideep Jaiman, Vice President for Analytics and Digital Transformation at VMart; Shefali Sharma, Head of Planning, Buying and Merchandising at Aditya Birla Fashion and Retail Limited; Sandeep Jabal, Chief Digital Transformation Officer and Information Officer at Shopper Stop; Abhishek Sharma, Vice President for Supply Chain and Quality Assurance at Blackberry's Menswear; and Sameer Dhingra, Director for the Retail and Consumer Verticals in the JPAC region at Google Cloud. Thank you, everyone, for joining us in what promises to be a very, very, very interesting discussion, considering how dynamic this sector is. So let's explore it from the start, from supply chains to the shopping channel. Everything now needs to be approached from the lens of timely, targeted, and tailored experiences for customers, especially as digital first shopping journeys are kind of blurring the lines between the physical and digital brand experience. So, I want to understand from our speakers how this rapid evolution of consumer preferences for a more omni channel experience has changed the way retailers think about consumer engagement. Shefali, we'll start with you.
Hi. If you just recall 2 years back when the pandemic hit us, we have seen how the consumer have actually moved toward digital channel in an unprecedented way. I mean, if you compare it to the pre-pandemic to now, and many organizations have now actually seen the need of elevating the customer experience and ensuring that they are touching each and every touch point in the consumer journey, from retail, which is the brick and mortar, and the digital space, and that's what we call the omni channel right now. So I think that is now actually the need of the hour. And why it has why it has changed so much is because now actually the consumer knows what he wants and where he wants and what kind of customer service he wants, because for everything that the retail companies do, I think customer service is most important, or the customer experience, if I may say, is actually most important. And hence how we actually enable the customer journey in each and every touch point of the consumer journey while purchasing becomes most important. So I think that's where the preference now for the consumers have gone. And actually, even if you look at some of the the data, that it actually states that customers do not mind spending extra for that customer experience, and that's close to good 80% of customers that say that. And for some semi odd percent customers, they feel that you know uh, they point to customer experience as the most important factor when it comes to actually closing down on that purchase. And good 60% of the buyers feel that it's that experience that is more powerful for them as compared to any kind of advertising for a consumer. So hence that is where the customers, the companies, I feel, need to really evolve from omni point of view, that it's not just compartments of channels where they're shopping from, but it's just one channel, which is retail and offline, and how we actually evolve the customer journey in that in that phase. So I think that's most important now.
Right. So retailers need to think simple when they look at engaging with customers. And it's also important to see that it's not just one customer, one type of customer. And it's interesting that you state that customers are willing to pay more provided that CX is enhanced and it's actually value for them, because there's value
Yes.
conscious customers, there's product conscious customers, there's brand conscious customers. So at the end
Yes.
of the day, any customer wants a great experience. And that's
Yeah.
the point.
See, also, I would just like to add something. Something that the last 2 years have taught us is there's nothing called brand loyalty anymore. Because with online shopping, there are a lot of customers that have moved somewhere else. It's the main reason for movement has been the customer experience. So it's not brand
Hmm.
loyalty. So hence, there is a price that you have to pay for the customer experience, and that is
All
actually
right.
value that you add. Yeah.
So, Samir, what would you say to that? There is no brand loyalty anymore, right? You can switch brands at the press of a button. And that study which I had quoted, that has pointed out some interesting features, especially when it comes to the Indian market. So, your thoughts on how retailers need to rethink consumer engagement in this non-brand loyal world?
Let me add on to what Shefali was saying. I think apart from being simplistic, I think it's time for retailers to think channelless. Because if you look at it, shoppers don't really think in channels. By the time the discovery, awareness, and consideration phase is over, I think the decision to shop from a point of sale is basically a matter of convenience, economics, and trust. So I think it's high time that we need to stop looking at our point of sale and somebody else's point of sale of platforms and start thinking channelless. And I think to that regard, what we are seeing now in the market with organizations and retailers, they are, looking at enhancing their capabilities to be able to provide this customer experience that Shefali was talking about. So you are now beginning to see chat and voice-based experiences to ease the shopping experience. You're now beginning to see a high level of personalization. Fulfillment with multiple channels is now table stakes. And at one end, while we see immense effort happening with regards to store modernization, at the other end, you are seeing this whole concept of metaverse. So I would say virtual is now a reality. And you're seeing brands and retailers now scrambling to meet the shoppers in the virtual world and getting comfortable with it. So it has a huge level of implications with respect to technology and how we are now beginning to look at our platforms. But I think the fact of the matter is that as a broader ecosystem in India, I think we are still at a slightly earlier stages of digital maturity across a broader ecosystem. But I see a huge potential for digital adoption and for driving innovation across the broader ecosystem.
Absolutely. And that huge potential, how we translate that to sustainable growth, that's going to be the key factor here for a lot of the enterprises, considering we're still in a very volatile economic environment. But coming back to the question of, how do you tune your enterprise to kind of use customer needs as a compass? Let me get in Jaideep and Sandeep for their thoughts on this. Jaideep, we'll start with you to the question of, how do you make sure that your enterprise is actually using customer needs as a compass to drive strategic plans and investments across different functions and make them work together instead of sort of operating in silos? Because at the end of the day, that's still a big challenge, right? Or different departments operating in silos, it's not all coming together. You're not leveraging data in the right way that you get from your customers. So how do you address that? Jaideep, your thoughts first, then we'll come to Sandeep.
Yeah. So, actually, a brilliant question, because it brings out what is the role data playing in transforming enterprises, and a very nuanced and a relevant insight here is that um, data is not just enabling insights, because insights enable something else, and um, data data is also an enabler of the energy with that kind of comes out with those insights. So, in my experience, as a person who has been leading analytics at VMart, um, what I have seen is that the certain whenever we have brought out insights of strategic analysis, there has it has a way of cutting across all the silos and inertias. Okay, it instantly energizes almost everyone. Right now, we are handling or we are bringing about insights from two kinds of data. One is wherein we can collect and synthesize, and there is more data cleaning and data transformation involved on the qualitative side. So one is a qualitative side and another is a quantitative side. Quantitative side is much easier to handle because um, with the right amount of data engineering and transformations, data would exactly tell you what it's supposed to tell you. But on the qualitative side, there's a lot of data cleaning and data governance involved. Okay. So on both sides, we have leveraged data and brought about insights. We On the qualitative side, we collect from stores, we collect insights from stores, we collect the insights from focus group discussions. We even collect product attribute level requirements. And with quantitative insights, we have been able to brought about insights like, I mean, just to tell you how powerful they can be. So we have been able to brought out insights like what are the kind of sizes that customers wear at particular stores in a particular catchment. uh, what are the catchment which celebrate regional festivals? What are the type what are the timings when you can contact your customers? Okay, so when you have these kind of insights on the table, everyone in the room gets to action because it impacts almost everyone. Okay, so I don't think it has been a challenge for us to bring about people from their own inertia or silos. It is just the challenge has only been to find the right use case wherein you can brought about you can bring about an insight which is so powerful that everybody springs to action. So that's
Hmm.
my take.
That's an interesting point. Sandeep, let me get your thought in is from a challenge perspective, as Jaideep says, it's not the issue is not the silos, but it's about that use case. So from that qualitative and quantitative side of data, how are you kind of tuning your enterprise to use customer needs as a compass?
So, you see, traditionally, if you look, all these functions, supply chain, marketing, retail, buying and merchandising, they operated in silos, but they had some linkages, so buying and merchandising will buy and they will announce their quantity. Supply chain will have some arrangement. Retail will make the arrangements in the retail outlets accordingly. Marketing will work on their marketing plans, marketing calendars. Now, all this used to happen in a very, very cyclical manner. Once in a waterfall method. Once you plan for A, B, C, D in that flow. Now, consumer needs are dynamic, so you have to react very fast. So, for example, today consumer, are looking at your product online and they like the product, they add to cart, but at the checkout they realize, it's going to take 3 days for shipping because the warehouse where the stock was available was maybe another city. So the the consumer may drop out. So now that's something which needs to be taken care of. Looking at the data, how many consumers are dropping at what point in time. So what could be the possible reasons? Now, if the silos are removed and all the data comes together, and we look at all the data and try to map the consumer journey, then we can make all the appropriate changes, not only in supply chain, not only in the retail, not in the only in the marketing spends at the right channel, but also all this put together on a daily basis, not like a waterfall method. So looking at data from the consumer actions being stitched across, and the required actions being taken by all the functions, that will translate into a better consumer experience. And it can be it can be measured. So using your NPS score, using your conversions, using the wallet share of the same consumer when she visits your store or website next time. So data, the good thing about data is that when you start working on it, you can easily measure it, and you can also measure your returns on it. So to me,
Hmm.
each data point needs to be captured and stitched together to make consumer experience better on each visit to your
All right, but to
store.
take that forward, and let me bring in Abhishek for this. When you're measuring data, when you're measuring returns, then the question comes about, how do we strategically optimize costs? Because we are still in a relatively uncertain global economic environment where cost pressures are rising as a retailer. So I want to know from you, Abhishek, how has technology helped you in uniquely developing strategic cost optimizations for your business, where the focus shifts from driving operational efficiency through cost cuts to realizing positive business outcomes by optimizing costs?
Yeah, thanks. I think that's a very burning topic nowadays to the consumer. The way pandemic has hit, and especially the macroeconomic factors behaving very abruptly, where the cost fluctuations are crazy in terms of the raw materials, and we cannot just straight pass on that whole impact to the consumer. So to take care of that, it's all about how you disrupt the supply chain. So to disrupt the supply chain, technology is really playing a very critical role. Unlike the orthodox mechanism of consolidations or moving to a low cost country zone. So a couple of examples like creating an agile supply chain by bringing technology, which means connecting with your partners and real time sharing that information so that the manual interventions are a little less and you save time. Eventually, man hours are getting reduced, your touch points are getting reduced, so indirectly it is leading to the cost savings. While as a retailer, everyone is reaching out to the consumer, especially into the B2B zone. That used to be a need of an hour where we used to connect with the traders across the nation, even outside the country. But now digitally, that platform really helped. And then how do we interact? How do we show our lines? How do we showcase our products? Which eventually, in return, saves time. Yes, of course, there is a slight miss of touch and feel, which can be still managed digitally because now the 3D tools, experience-based tools, which shows the entire drape and everything, get the similar feel to the B2B customer so that they can feel confident and buy. And eventually this has saved time and helped indirectly where the costs are getting increased in the products so that we do not pass on that the same to our consumer. And lastly, using AI, artificial intelligence, I think that has really become helpful where talking about our logistics, optimizing our routes, really working closely with our logistics partners rather than having single shipments to one location, really consolidating those using your AI information, consolidating your PIN codes. That is really helping us out that, how each single important lever is, contributing to the cost impact. And lastly, from a design perspective, as we are a retail brand into apparel, so it is very important that how effectively use our technology part there. So tools like Clo, tools like 3D Optitex, giving the 3D look and feel to the product, cross-functional teams sitting out different parts of the country, interacting digitally, not just traveling every single time, which really contributes to the whole cost impact. So this is an entire gamut of different initiatives, which is beyond the orthodox mechanism of really working on the strategic sides of cost saving. But yes, technology is playing a very, very critical role there.
Fantastic. Taking cue from what you have said, Abhishek, I'll bring Samir in. Considering the application of technology across a variety of use cases. That brings up the point on how do you stitch together, your entire organizational DNA using technology. Samir, the pandemic has caused the Indian retail sector an estimated $30 billion in lost revenue, but it has also set it up for a strong bounce back. A tech-first approach to emerge as the world's most technologically savvy retail industry. So, in such a scenario, how do you leverage technology across the value chain and not just as a single use case? Take us through those pillars of digital transformation which are necessary.
Yeah, you're right in saying, and often we find organizations really focused on sometimes ad hoc testing and individual use cases, as a result of which, it ends up becoming short-term fixes to long-term challenges. I think the critical component here is that we need to sort of figure out where to prioritize, which are the biggest value drivers of businesses, and then bunch them into meaningful clusters, which can then become the focus of investments. So if you talk about certain clusters, retailers could potentially look at a few areas. One, how can they drive a data-centric decision making. So how can you become more customer centric? And I think we discussed a few of those elements. I think the second one is really doing a lot of work in building together your digital commerce platform. So how do you capture that omni-channel growth? How do you really get visibility to shopper journeys so that you are engaging with the shoppers where they want you to be? I think the third very big element of work which could potentially happen is in store modernization. So executing your modern store strategy to be able to provide the platforms for in-store experiences then becomes a key. And I think last but not the least is this whole area of operational efficiency. So sustainability, supply chain visibility. I think Abhishek just talked about supply chain. That becomes a huge area of transformation as well. So, you could potentially look at multiple cases across these four big areas, but it is important to prioritize and look for biggest value drivers and build out your use case transformation roadmap. And I think only then you would be able to stitch together a unified shopping experience for your consumers.
Absolutely. And in the context of value drivers, I think zero friction for the customer is also one of the emerging narratives where it becomes seamless, considering so many digitally native businesses exist. So Jaideep, let me bring you in to address that. How do retailers ensure that the digital experience of customers is truly zero friction and optimized for digital shopping in intuitive ways? Say a customer taking a photo of a product they want to buy and getting to do it within one or two steps, or a brand predicting what a customer wants and getting its back end ready to act even before the customer has reached that transaction stage. So your thoughts on this, and then we'll come to Sandeep.
So I think there are a lot of use cases which come about when one starts talking about zero friction, um, and frankly, a customer taking a product photo and immediately they're adding it to a cart and doing that. I mean, it's a brilliant use case. I think Google Lens itself is a huge example and very brilliantly executed. But we as a retailer have been uh, going about it on our own journey through this, because our customer is quite different. Our customer um, um, is in tier 2, tier 3 cities. We are a value fashion retailer, stretching ourselves into every corner of Bharat. Okay. So we have been trying to discover what are the digital first things that we need to kind of start delivering to our customers. Um, so I mean, we kind of understood that our customer is very, very conscious in doing card payments. They are still very, very far away from being digitally first. So that was one of those learnings. We have kind of stitched the customer's journey. I mean, we have been trying to graduate our customers. We look at our CDP, and we have been trying to graduate our customers, prompt our customers to eventually turn to card payments. Okay. Then we have been questioning a few things in our customer journey. For example, why do we have to be in a queue to pay? Okay. So the zero friction use cases maybe a little bit far away from our reach, but I think low hanging fruits and very obvious things that we are ignoring over here. As in, if you if you if you can pay by a website, okay, and you are not standing in a line, what is the next problem you need to solve? The next problem you need to solve is the search of the product you have picked should become as easy, and adding it to the cart should become as easy as handing the product to the cashier. Okay. And similarly, the return and replacement experience. Okay. How does it get tied to um, um, offline and online journey? Okay. The customer is already back at home, tried it out. Okay. Possibly didn't like it. Okay. What can he or she do so that the replacement experience at the store becomes much more convenient, and he or she discovers that it's much easier to do it digitally. Okay,
Hmm.
so we are trying to discover some digital journeys which will eventually help our customers stretched out in Bharat to come slowly to this digital platform and adopt us on our website.
Absolutely.
So
And that's where India could become a sort of a test bed, right? For discovering digital experiences, new interactions between the customer and retailer, and then finding out where those zero friction use cases can emerge and then can be addressed. Sandeep, your thoughts on this? I mean, considering, the points which have been stated, do you find a difference in zero friction use cases between, say, tier one, tier two cities and tier three, tier four areas? And if so, how do you maintain that balance?
Definitely, frictionless experience is and personalization are two big things that are going to differentiate consumer experience from brand A to brand B, or channel A to channel B for that matter. And of course, it would mean different things for people in different categories or different tiers. Uh, I think the standards are already set with the likes of Amazon Go. You just grab and go. I mean, uh, there is no interaction with anybody, no friction at all. And similarly, on the app as well, you select an item, and you just the technology at the back end is working, to bring all the pieces together, your location, your favorite payment mode. Just have to swipe right, and there you go. So, but yes, these are the standards which are set now. Now there could be, unique uh, requirements of consumers in different segments or different cities. But I think most of the and there could be consumers who, still want to interact with a person in the store, and get to needs to confirm a lot of more information. So a frictionless or a personalized experience could definitely mean different things for different people. But yes, technology plays a great role in providing this frictionless experience, because it knows a lot about you when you start interacting with the product, and because it knows about you, your purchasing pattern, your behavior in the past, it tries to replicate the same experience each time you visit. And that's what make a consumer feel that this retailer knows me, and hence my experience gets better each time when I visit at this website or this particular store.
All right, let's expand that conversation to also include supply chain. Abhishek, I'll bring you in. Last mile is invariably the weakest link in the supply chain, yet it is powerful enough to sort of make or break a company due to factors including extremely demanding customers and unstructured addresses. So, how have you used technology to optimize last mile delivery? Because while we have been speaking on customer expectations, delivering that product to that customer is one of the biggest points where customer expectation can be managed. So the last mile issue which comes up, how do you solve for that?
No, I think it's very important. I mean, considering few years back, it used to be a good to have option, and now it's a must have for any retailer to survive. And especially the whole FMCG segment, food, grocery segment, they have really disrupted that whole last mile delivery part of it. There's a huge pressure on the retail, especially in the apparel world and any other retail organization, to really start looking at their consumer till the last mile. So, I mean, there used to be focus on B2B earlier, but now considering 26,000 pin codes in India, and especially the consumer used to be more digitally savvy and tech savvy and use shopping online on the metro side of it. But now, as Sandeep and Jaideep also mentioned, they're going to the tier two, tier three, tier four. So the reach to the consumer has gone dramatically high. Now, so to do that, last mile for on the logistics front has become very, very critical. So mapping of those pin codes to your whole application technology is very important. That how do you start servicing those? Because you cannot have the whole distribution centers across the nation. You can be having a mother distribution center or mother warehouse, but very operating very effectively and efficiently out of that. So one is the mapping of those, and secondly, optimizing your routes. Because while you use your regional partners in terms of logistics, how fast and how agile they are, and how the mapping of those codes been done, but still, if I do not use the technology, still they will lack in terms of the delivery. Because right now the consumer still, even the time has gone now, even for the next day delivery or the same day delivery, it has come down to few hours. To add up to that, like now we are providing an experience to a consumer, like when they order online, and system, our technology really gives them a trigger that what is the store nearby you. We can have both the options, and a store person can come out to his place and he can get a trial and buy and don't buy. That's an option. Or even the consumer can walk down in the nearby vicinity and check the product, and if it is an online and offline map. So that's, I think that's only possible, feasible, because of technology. We are already under testing phase of it. But I believe if something is launched that way, I think the kind of experience what Samir was also talking about, end of the day, it's all about providing extraordinary experience to our consumer, so that he gets connected, associated to us as a brand, and then accordingly we are loyal to each other and continue a long-term journey.
All right. Well, so far in the conversation, when it comes to experiences, we've covered discovery, attraction, and purchase. But now comes the most exciting part, which is after sales, because that's where the engagement actually matters, and that's where loyalties get created or destroyed. Shefali, I know you said that brand loyalty is kind of redundant these days, but while we have seen tremendous advancement in improving the discovery and purchase sides of a customer journey, the after sales aspect that still appears to be a bit disconnected, and any missteps by the enterprise that raises the possibility of the customer completely disengaging with the brand and potentially influencing others as well. That's the next problem. So what are the gaps still left to be addressed in this area, and how do you see technology enabling enterprises to tackle the after sales journey more effectively?
Yeah, so I think that actually is the biggest challenge for every retailer today, because see, when you talk about customer experience, while the customer is shopping, so you're making sure that all the points of that customer journey is attended to or is addressed to, right? Be it online or offline. But it is once the purchase is made, what now? So I think we're in that stage where we still don't we've not really evolved, where we've really mastered the post purchase this thing the experience. However, I feel yes, you're right, because that is one phase where you actually lose out most of the customers, and that right now is actually most important for all the retailers to focus at, because you focus for the first half of the customer journey, but the actual when you say when you reap the benefits of the fruit is actually it actually sits in the second half of the journey. So I think that is most important for us. And uh, traditionally, if you look at just the post order service, it's all about call centers or the customer care where the customers can approach. But I think now a lot of retailers have moved towards a chat box, which now has become more relevant, for a simple reason that it never gets tired, right? It can answer unlimited questions that the customer has. And also it's a very innovative way for the retailers to actually engage the customer to provide personalized service, because personalization is something that most of the customers are looking for. And the more that you can personalize a service, you're actually enhancing the customer experience. So I think personalization in your post purchase is the key for for all the retailers, especially when it comes to post order management.
Absolutely. And we're not
Yeah.
just in the era of personalization, we're in the era of hyper personalization, which is where again we come to data again as that central
Yes.
focal point. But data also brings with it a certain paradox. Jaydeep earlier mentioned about, the quality of data and quantity of data. So I want to take the conversation's direction into addressing how do you solve a data paradox? And Samir, let me bring you in for this. AI needs data and data needs AI. And data availability is a common issue, especially in India, where there is still significant analog links in the value chain remaining to be converted to digital. So, how do you structure yourself to kind of obtain quality data for mining the best consumer insights to convert customers to fans?
Well, data truly is the center of any transformation. And I can tell you that almost 100% of my conversations with organizations, they start with, how do we make sense and how do we build a system of insight? And I think to be able to do that, it is absolutely essential to start to look at, or at least have a vision of building a unified retail data model where you can bring in multiple silos of information. It will not be perfect, but it is absolutely important to have that vision and have that direction. And not only that, then to be able to extract that information without complex analytical capabilities. I think that's the key. So, from my perspective, when I look at it, I don't think technology is an inhibitor anymore. We have technology available. We have the data platforms and the components available to make it happen. But I think more and more we find that it is the challenge is more in terms of the mindset or the cultural, fit within the organization or the executive buy-ins. If we are able to overcome those challenges, there are three potential ways that you could start looking at, harnessing the power of data. First, start by building a unified customer data platform. And I think some people, or majority of the retailers, start from the customer side, but you can also start from your operational or supply chain side or any other side. But I think you need to start building as a building block. Having a 360 view is a great start, and many of the personalization and the seamless experience that you're talking about, this becomes the foundational use case. Second, build strong recommendation and a personalization engine. Again, technologies are available. You could potentially use the recommendation AI engine that Google Cloud has, or anything else for that matter. And I'll give you an example. There are some excellent use cases available. So, for example, IKEA has been using this technology, and they have been having an increase of, let's say, about 30 odd percent increase in the click-through rates, 400% increase in the relevant recommendations for the customers. So think about, from a shopper's perspective, that the search abandonment issue goes down tremendously. And I think the third thing, once you're able to manage the first two, is to now begin to look at how do you begin to get into the retail media business and the retail media platforms to really start monetizing the data, monetizing the first party data that you're generating within your systems. So I think it is possible, as long as directionally the organization is ready to move forward.
I'll pick your brains on that retail media aspect, but let me get Jaideep to respond to this. Jaideep, you mentioned earlier about the quality and quantity side of data, right? So your response to solving this data paradox, what would you say?
So how do we solve this data paradox? Is that there is a left out story within the AI journey, and that is expert systems. Expert systems um, are largely rule-based systems, business rule systems, and I think we have leveraged that brilliantly, because whatever strategic insights we bring about, um, and look at the exceptions, and whether those insights don't really follow the pattern and things, we discover some rules and some exceptions that we have to kind of code into our systems. And that is an approach which works because business rules can be understood by business users. Okay. And having large scale production expert systems has really helped us in solving this data paradox, because what happens is that you don't need a lot of data to train AI models endlessly. There are some rules that you already know. There are certain rules which are obvious. So you don't have to train AI to do some tasks which are obvious to you. Okay, you can go into specific use cases wherein you will leverage AI and data science. I think that is one very nuanced and a balanced approach we have been taking on this.
All right, circling back to you, Samir. What you mentioned about retail media, essentially an advertising business that a retailer sets up in order to allow advertisers to buy advertising space across the retailer's owned on-site properties and paid off-site media, using consumer data to connect with customers throughout that buyer journey. And that's estimated to be $100 billion opportunity by 2026 worldwide. So, what is the current state of retail media opportunities in India, and how do you see retail enterprises leveraging this opportunity? We'll come to your thoughts first, Samir, and then Sandeep's thoughts.
Yeah, I think it's really no-brainer. So if you look at it, as you rightly mentioned, from a retail media perspective, all it's doing is really leveraging your first-party data, and the retailers are able to offer closed-loop measurements. The brands are very happy because they're able to get visibility, measurement, access to retail shopper journeys, and in the end, broadly, you have greater customer experience, higher conversion rate, and so on and so forth. I think the opportunity is huge, and more we are seeing brands allocating more and more budgets towards these media platforms. While doing so, there is a common goal, and I think it is it's also, I think, called, another term for this is co-op marketing and co-op funding, and I think it's moving forward very nicely. I see a bigger potential for especially the specialty retailers in this space, because if you look at the larger marketplaces which have the first movers advantage in building the media platforms, they still have a very broader category view. Whereas if you look at specialty retailers, like yourself, on my colleagues on the panel, they have huge and very rich understanding and very rich database which they can potentially monetize and drive collaboration between brands and themselves. So I think the potential is huge. However, from the Indian ecosystem perspective, what we are finding that the priority at this stage is more on developing the foundations of data platform and infrastructure to be able to harness the data with respect to driving personalization, building customer knowledge graphs at this stage. And I think we are still a little far away from really switching on gears to monetizing it externally.
All right, those foundational data pipelines are being laid out, but once they're there, let's see how big this retail media opportunity gets. Sandeep, considering you work for a brand which has significant mind space in consumers, whether from an online or a physical perspective, what do you make of this retail media opportunity?
No, definitely. Not only, we believe there is a high potential. In fact, a lot of our spends are also directed in that direction, and we believe, this is a unique win-win proposition for both brands and retailers, where we are able to capture consumers' attention at the point where consumer is going to take a decision, and also, the only thing, the next level where I see is that. Not a static content playing in a certain area, but a dynamic content basis the consumer action or how much time consumer has spent in the store, maybe consumer demographic, maybe recognizing your consumer, who she is, and then accordingly playing a dynamic content so that the conversions are even higher. That's the next level where we see. But yes, this is a win-win situation, and this is likely to grow as a big revenue opportunity and a conversion opportunity for retailer.
All right. Retail media, a win-win for enterprises and customers. That's the message coming out. Now, as we head to the final leg of the conversation, let me get some summary thoughts on the way forward. Is the next frontier now going to be retailers engaging customers and enhancing customer loyalty by co-creating their experiences with them? I want to know from the panel, what are the innovations and unique experiences for this area powered by data going to look like? So, Shefali, we'll start with you. Is it going to be a co-creative world? And maybe then we could address that brand loyalty question
Yes.
because the customer feels connected to the brand.
Yes, I think that's really rightly put. It is about co-creation, because customer is informed. The customer is aware of what's going on, and I think one of the major factor of why people lose brand loyalty is also about their knowledge. And I feel the customer wants a connection with the brand, connection in terms of their value systems, connection in terms of, even if it's a call out about sustainability or about a purpose. So, when you co-create your value system with the consumer value system, I think that creates brand loyalty. And how innovatively we can do that, is going to be the biggest challenge. So, for I think where data is concerned, I think predictive analysis here is going to be really useful, because there's a lot of data that people have, but what is the right data and what they need to infer out of the data, I think is going to be the biggest challenge. So, for example, many years back, in fact, a few years back, customer survey has served a long way, as a foundation for collecting data. But today it has lost its relevance because of non-response from the consumer. That's because I feel companies have not really thought through of what the consumer wants to answer. Now, because we have the data now, it's and we personalize it basis what the consumer wants, we can then actually get a a valid result of the survey that we're doing. So I think it's about how you marry both, your value system and data together to build that brand loyalty back to back with the consumer. And also the most important criteria I feel now to build brand loyalty is about personalization, because that is most important. And because you have data, you know what the consumer wants. You have filtered out the databases, your interaction with the consumers, and we need to now think of innovative ways of how we actually curate a particular offer for a consumer. That offer not necessarily means a deal for a consumer, but it's about personalizing his needs. So I think that's important in building back the brand loyalty.
Absolutely. Great point there. Marry your value system with the data and see what the magic is when it comes to building a bridge to customers. Let me get in our other panelists for their summary thoughts. Abhishek, from a supply chain perspective, the innovations that you're looking forward to, especially when it comes to co creating value with customers.
Yeah, I mean, so my colleague really rightly said that every brand value and ethos is today the customer first approach. And now to make it happen, it is important that you really see the data. And secondly, it is, I mean, nothing can be better than hearing from the horse's mouth, which is like our consumers speaking. So of course, one of the way, which is a pretty long ongoing way, is to conduct the surveys. But right now, as a brand, what we are looking at is start monitoring and looking at the data points of consumers said and unsaid needs. And SET has always been a mechanism for years and ages and days that we have been following. But unsaid is something which is very critical. Now, this last 2 years of pandemic has forced us to really start thinking about what actually the consumer says. So we initiated a couple of programs like we started monitoring and measuring in our stores like try and buy rate. How many consumers are trying the product and what percentage of them they're buying actually? That's really signifies what the real problem is. Are we really struggling with fits or the colors or what design patterns they're looking to? Even the head office team, the leadership team has started going for key launches and big calendars in the stores and interacting with consumer face to face and really listening to them what actually they feel about the brand, about the product that we offer. And last but not the least is about listening to some of the customer interactions. So what we're doing is logically we are recording some of their conversations, which directly comes to the either online queries or offline queries, and making out an inference out of it what actually they're looking for, where the real struggle lies, and because these are the real genuine data points. And one of the example of this is like while they come, they really get struggled at times to get the right match what they want to buy. So to make that happen, we started with the metro strategy and then started putting our stylists, which are trained stylists at our flagship stores. When the consumer comes, that's the experience they get. And what the rest of the my colleagues talked here about personalization, this is one of the key driver towards really helping them what actually go well on them, what suits them, what color combination, what sort of fits that we offer, which fit suits them. So I think these are the areas, these are some of the unsaid needs which are coming very categorically. As a brand, we are taking very severe and strong actions towards it, and I think that's really contributes to the amazing customer experience.
All right. Jaideep, your thoughts on this?
So I think I agree with both of my colleagues. I think Abhishek said about said and unsaid things, and I think they are both important, but unsaid especially more important because you need to have certain amount of empathy to understand unsaid things, and to that effect, I think as technocrats, I think it's more important now to kind of pay heed to these things, and these are the things which will help us create or co-create it with customers, the new digital experiences. So for said things, we need to structure the data pipelines in such a manner that the feedback loops flow right into our business rules and restructure them um, and have agility to restructure them. We should have such data enabled platforms, enablement platforms, which help us spin out new digital experiences as these feedback loops are giving us new data. In terms of unsaid needs, I think I'll just quote a small example. Um, Abhishek also talked about talking to the customers first and leadership team going to the stores and talking to the customers first time. So talking to the customers is something that we instantly start thinking about chatbots when we start linking that we have to talk to customers and deliver it with technology. Uh, I think talking to customers is something that is such an important thing that it cannot be left to technology or the chatbots. I think the customers who are coming to us, we need to have empathy that customers who are trying to reach to us are the customers who need to say something really fast. There is really urgent or really something that they really want to be addressed. Okay, and we should be there to address it. So I mean, just to give you a slight example of what kind of an empathy we need while trying to craft the digital experiences. Having said that, chatbots deliver a significant value in terms of cost optimization. And so a nuanced approach needs to be taken on technology.
All
That's
right,
my
a nuanced approach where richer digital experiences can lead to richer CX experiences. And the human element is still crucial because, as you said, there are some aspects of that customer connect, that customer conversation, where the human connect will make a significant difference. Of course, technology could augment that. It could make the customer know that the brand really knows them and is working actively to solve some of their pain points. Sandeep, coming to you for your summary thoughts on that innovation that you're looking forward to, especially when it comes to co-creating value with customers. Your summary thoughts.
I think data is the key here. We already do something called a personal shopper program where we give a unique experience to customer where we have the personal shopper in a store has access to a tab which has access to historical data purchases and some meaningful insights, and accordingly they can make valuable suggestions and make consumer journey of purchase very very meaningful. And these consumers who are attended by our personal shoppers have a average basket value of 3x other as compared to the other customers. So I think we've taken the right step in this direction, and because consumers are willing to share more insights, the kind of things they want, they're willing to share data. If we are able to capture it correctly across the segments and able to harness the data, I think we will be able to create more unique experiences for customer, not only by assisting them in doing shopping when they are present in the store, but also using the same information in all our interactions with the consumer, whether they're discount seekers, whether they are looking for right information when there are new launches, or whether a certain product line which is due for launch. So I think using data and using meaningful exploitation of data and using it across the channels in our communication, we can definitely take this experience to next level.
All right, Samir, let me come to you for the last word. Considering that study which I quoted at start that saw India being at the second stage of digital maturity as a digital explorer market when it comes to retail. So when as we progress to the next stage, how important are co-creating experiences with the customers going to be? And how do you see India progressing forward from here on, the Indian retail market, as it tries to reach that digitally resilient business stage?
I think there is a very fast acceleration and adoption which is happening, and we are finding organizations and retailers really leapfrogging multiple stages from 1 to 3, 2 to 4 as we move forward. I think from an innovation perspective, as rightly said, as you just heard from many of us, there has been over the last 12 months intense focus on marketing automation, on building customer data platforms, on warehousing operations. But I think going forward, where we see innovation really concentrating across, primarily around 3 areas, if I may say so. I think the biggest focus area which is coming forward is customer retention. I think retention is now becoming the new acquisition. So I think everybody is now looking at, having now built the ability to look at their customer journeys. The focus is now shifting on customer retention. Another very big area of innovation that we are beginning to see now is the effort to build their omni-channel commerce or digital commerce platforms. So having the ability to have mobile first commerce platform for anytime, anywhere shopping is now becoming a key with respect to innovation use cases. And third, and not the least, is the area around store and warehouse operations. And I think as India being the diverse geographic market, the fulfillment, logistics, and operational efficiencies are key to a successful retail experience. So these are the areas that we are seeing a lot of activity and innovation happening.
All right, lots of exciting developments coming up. And well, as they say, the customer is the king or the queen, but data is God. So I'm looking forward to all the blessings which the gods of data will shower upon our retailers and transform customer experiences to a whole new level. But we have run out of time. On that note, it's time to conclude this conversation around transforming retail with data, where we have discussed and deliberated the ways and means for retailers in India to effectively engage with customers across any channel using the power of technology. I'd like to thank all of our panelists for sharing their insights on the topic as part of Money Control Innovation Next, presented by Google Cloud. And of course, a special thanks to our viewers for tuning in. Till next time, this is your host, Gautam Srinivasan, signing off. Have a great day.